All right. So right here we are done with classical conditioning, and now we are moving on to operant conditioning, and it's different. Classical conditioning is biological. It is reflexive. You can't really control it. Operant conditioning is not biological in a sense all the time. It is behavioral, operating within the environment. You choose to do these things. So what we're doing with operant conditioning is that we are either trying to increase amount of behaviors, or we are trying to decrease the amount of behaviors. Okay, so our learning outcomes is to define operant conditioning, explain reinforcers and punishments, pros and cons of punishments, discuss scheduled reinforcements, and explain concept of shaping. I don't know if we'll be able to get all of this done in 15 minutes. If not, then I'll probably have to make another round of videos. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, operant conditioning is voluntary. It is not reflexive. We're not talking about salivating or getting hungry or anything biological like that. We're talking about performing behaviors, and whether or to weaken behaviors through reinforcers or punishments. So when we talk about reinforcements, we are talking about we want to see an increase in behaviors. Okay? So it's any stimuli that will increase the amount of behaviors. For example, some parents give their children $5 for every A they get in the class, or maybe if you want to train your dog to shake your hand with their paw, that is a behavior. And so the idea is you want to see these behaviors again. And so what we have to do is what's called use a reinforcer, a reinforcement. And there's two types of reinforcement. One is primary reinforcers. These are things that we biologically want, food, water, and sex. And then there's secondary reinforcers, which are cultural and societal. You know, getting a cell phone, money, stuff that you have to learn to appreciate. And so what we have here is a positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Now, we're not talking about positive as being good and negative as being bad. What we are talking about is positive as an addition, negative as a subtraction. So these are more mathematical terms than good and bad. Now, for reinforcements, what you want to do is you want to add to the situation that wasn't already there. So in order to train your dog to shake your hand, you give them a treat. This is something they want. All right. If you want A's, your children to score A's, you give them something that they want. You give them a reward, something that they really want. Negative reinforcers is taking away something unpleasant. You're subtracting. Maybe a high school age boy is tired of hearing his mom nag about cleaning his room. And so, in order to stop her from nagging, he cleans her room. See how that works? That's a negative reinforcement. Or taking a Tylenol or ibuprofen for a headache. What you're doing is, by putting the pills in your mouth and swallowing those pills, it takes away headaches, something that is not wanted. So you're more likely to see that behavior of taking medicine to take rid of a headache, because it takes away something that's unpleasant. So positive is something that's wanted, positive reinforcer, and negative reinforcer is taking away something that's not wanted. Now, punishment is when you want to see less of a behavior. You don't like this behavior, you don't want to see it again. Okay? So again, there's two types of punishments. There's positive punishment and negative punishment. Again, we're not talking about good and bad here. We're talking addition and subtraction. And so for positive punishment, we're adding something that the person or animal does not want. For little kids, it might be a spanking, or they You give them something. You give them extra homework to do, or you give them extra chores to do. You give them something that they do not want. So you'll see less likely to see those behaviors that you didn't want to see before. For your dog, it could be a scolding, or maybe just a slight tap on the head saying don't do that, okay? Or spraying them with a spray bottle every time they do something you don't like. That is a positive punishment, so you're less likely to see that again. Negative punishment is when you remove something that they do want. Alright, so the kid acts up in class, you take away their phone. That is a negative punishment. You're taking away, you're subtracting from the situation in order to decrease the behavior of occurring again. So if a kiddo is on their phone during class, or a mom is talking to the kiddo and the kiddo's not paying attention because he or she's on the phone, mom can take away that phone. You're subtracting, so that behavior stops and less likely to occur later. Okay. Let's go move on. Okay. The evidence suggests, okay, that if you want long-term behavioral changes, reinforcements work better than punishments. Spankings don't really work in the long run. It may stop the behavior then, but as far as changing the behavior permanently, that might be a different story. Frequently, always giving punishments is not always a good thing to do. Sometimes people punish out of anger. Punishment, especially spanking. Again, we're talking about classical conditioning here, right? If you give punishment, if you give a spanking or any kind of physical or emotional pain, well, then they might see that in the mom who's doing it as someone who is, causes emotional pain, or dad. And so they might make that connection. Sorry for all my things. I don't know how to get rid of it. Anyways, they don't know how to get they see the source of their pain and punishment as something that's negative. So yeah, is this the type of the relationship you want with your kids? All right, so what really tends to work is reinforcements. Reinforcements is what really permanently changes behavior on a variable ratio schedule. We haven't talked about it yet, but reinforcers tend to work better than punishments. Okay, so schedules of reinforcement. I got 7 minutes left. Alright. First of all, you have continuous reinforcements. Like every single time the behavior occurs, you reinforce that behavior. Every time I take my son and daughter to the store and they behave well, I give them a reinforcer, candy bar, something like that. Okay. Partial or intermediate reinforcement schedule is occasionally, sometimes, and maybe fixed once every 3 times, or maybe time of the week, or it could be a particular, once every 2 times. Alright, it's partial. It's not every single time. Okay, fixed ratio. Ratio meaning occurrences. Fixed meaning it never changes. So a fixed ratio schedule is you reinforce the behavior at a fixed set amount of times the behavior occurred. So once every 4 times. Once every 5 times. Maybe you get paid, once out of 10 products that you make. It's a ratio. You get paid by a fixed amount of occurrences of the behaviors. Never changes. Stays the same. Once every 3 times I take my kids to Walmart, they get a candy bar. No matter what. Never change. Variable ratio schedule is unknown. You never know when the reinforcers will show up. And this is very addictive. This is actually very good at changing behavior. Probably the best is a variable ratio schedule. Think about it. What are slot machines? When you go gambling, you're pulling down the slot machine, and it might be next time, you could get rich. You could win some money. Didn't win it. So let's do it again. It might be this next time. And you do it again. And you keep on doing it over and over again. So a variable ratio schedule. Dogs, if you feed your dogs table scraps on occasion, or they are up in your face trying to eat your food or get you to give them your food, if you just give it to them sometimes, alright, occasionally, they will be all over you all the time, because it might be this time. It just might. Alright. Let me go down one. Well, I don't see anything about fixed interval. Fixed interval is amount of time that has passed. Seconds, weeks, months, days, years. I get paid once a month on the 15th. That is a fixed interval schedule. Okay, once a month. Month being the big word. And it's every day, every time at the same time of the month. So it's a fixed interval schedule. And then you also have a variable interval schedule, which amount of time, once every 5 minutes, once every 2 weeks, or you just don't know when it's going to happen. Okay. Shaping is the process of getting whatever you're trying to operantly condition to get to that point. I mean, if you want your dog to shake your hand, how are you going to start that whole process of him actually putting his hand or paw in your hand? Well, you have to shape that behavior. You have to reinforce behaviors that are somewhat similar, or getting him closer. Maybe he just turns around or lifts up his paw just a little bit. You give them a reinforcer for that, and you continue to do that until they get to the point to where they actually have their hand in their paw in your hand, and you reinforce that. So shaping is the process of starting out the reinforcement to operant conditioning by getting them to get to the behaviors that you want in the first place. You want to teach a pigeon to turn around in circles. Maybe they just happen to look in left, so you reinforce that. And maybe they just turn a little bit more, you reinforce that. And so you keep on going until you get to the very end. Okay, cognitive approaches. I got 2.5 minutes. Latent learning is things that you know, but you don't know until you have to use it. Maybe you don't know a route. You don't think you know a route until you're actually in the car and you get there. Okay. Observational learning, very important in human psychology and evolution. Mirror neurons, being able to mirror someone else. A polar bear takes thousands and thousands, if not millions of years to develop the white fur and the fat to keep it warm. Okay, that takes a long time to do that over evolution. We human beings can skip all that by watching your dad kill a bear, skin a bear, and use that bear to make a coat. And now we are warm. We have effectively skipped millions of years of evolution by just observing someone else do it. Okay, it's very, very important. This is why sports works. I'm a big Chiefs fan. The Chiefs lose, I felt like I lose. The mirror neurons in our brain allows us to connect with other people and what they're doing. Okay. We got about a minute left. Observational learning, again, is just observing someone else do it. Albert Bandura effect, the Bobo dolls, see your parents beat up a doll, the child's more likely to beat the doll. And lastly, violence in media. Okay, there is no evidence to suggest whatsoever that there's any connection to video game violence and real violence out in the world. In fact, those who have been part of mass murders and mass shootings actually played less violent video games than the general population. Okay. That's important to understand with the media. Sometimes the media can play a role, but not likely. If you're going out to cause problems or to cause violence, there's something else going on besides the media. All right, thank you.